Welcome or welcome back. I'm Literary Mad Max, and we are going to do my August wrap-up today. I am late to this for a variety of reasons. I think I have a lot of good excuses. One, work has been hard. Two, I got a flat tire for the first time and had to figure that out. Less fun. And I got to go see Darcy Coates talk about her new book, which sounds actually really good. I didn't know what it was about. That woman writes books in like 4 months, and I don't understand. So, and she's Australian. Did you know Darcy Coates was Australian? Because I did not. But anyway, these are the books that I read in August. I read 13 books, which isn't like stellar for me, but I also got married, which, you know, so I really can't complain about how many books I read, and I read some good ones. I had one DNF. Over half of the authors I read were new to me authors. I don't think I found one win actually with a new to me author. A couple wins, 1 5-star. I got to be a host for the Literally Dead book club, which was so fun. And it was with the book I already knew that I loved, so I was excited about that. Like, I'm always down to come show out and be a hater, but it was more fun to like enjoy the book and talk about the good things about it. I also run an in real life horror book club, and that was my other reread. We'll talk about that in a second. I read 4,852 pages, which that's also not my best. I think it says that I was down like 34% for both books and pages, which is fine. And my average rating was below a 4 for the first time, I think. I usually read a lot of books I enjoy and then just DNF books that I don't. I think that I just didn't have a super stellar month, so my average rating is a 3.9. I reread 2 books, and then the rest of the books that I read were arcs. And I have to say that I'm getting tired of reading so many arcs. I really want to read the books that I have purchased, but I did do this to myself. So I have to read the books that I was sent and the books on NetGalley first so that I don't get like excommunicated or something. I don't want to go to NetGalley jail. Let's talk about all of the books that I did read. Okay, so the only book that I DNF'd was Happiness and Love by Zoe Dubnell. This was blurbed by Melissa Broder. I was ready for it to be really, really weird, and it just was not. This came out on September 2nd. I got 50 pages in where I was just like, I cannot do this anymore. It is about a woman who lives in New York, has a lot of rich friends, and it's just a single chapter monologue of her complaining about her rich friends. And I was just not really interested in continuing on with that. Maybe it does get weirder, but all she does is complain about everyone that she chooses to surround herself with, and it's like, just stand up and solve your problems. You don't have to be here. So that was my only DNF. So everything that I read digitally or on audio, digitally, The Once and Future Me by Melissa Pace, I thought this was pretty solid. It's about a woman who is in the 1950s in an asylum, but also thinks that she's an agent from the future trying to save the future from this super virus, and you don't really know which part of her life is real or not because she also doesn't know. I thought it was a really interesting take on it. I enjoyed it. The ending was crazy, and I'm interested to see more from this author. I'm not sure if it was a debut, but had me guessing the whole time, which I really enjoyed, and I only gave it a 3.75, but if you ask me now, I'd say it was like a 4, so I would recommend it. Salt Crop by Yume Kitase, I read this on audio, and I was a little bit worried because it did remind me a lot of Island of Last Things by Emma Slowly, as well as Private Rights by Julia Armfield, just for the sister aspect, the cli-fi aspect, and I didn't like either of those books, so I was worried I wasn't going to like this one, but I thought it was like pretty solid. I thought the characters I cared about more than I did in Private Rights, so that part was nice. And then the cli-fi aspect was a lot more interesting and felt like it had a lot more stakes, was faster paced, and even though it was told in 3 acts and we went from sister to sister, I enjoyed that. Usually I don't enjoy a change of perspective in that way. I get very set in my ways in a book very early on, but I didn't mind it in this one because I was so curious about the inside of each sister's head. So I enjoyed it, and I felt like I got to know them through this book in a way that I enjoyed. And I ended up giving that one 3.75, which I stand by. Spread Me by Sarah Gailey. This was my first book by them, and it won't be my last. This was absolutely bonkers, and I do think it got compared, both in the book and just in general, to John Carpenter's The Thing, which I have not consumed that piece of media, but I want to now because this was so insane. This is about a woman who is the lead on this scientific exploration set in a remote location in the desert. They're there for like 4 years, and the other people on this science expedition have been playing what she calls like sexual musical chairs. They've just been going at it with each other, but they all leave her alone. And after they take in this really weird specimen, one of them starts showing interest in each other, and she's like, hey man, not for me. Mostly because she is attracted to bacteria and not people. But it gets so crazy bonkers from there. Just pulls no punches, but it's a lot of fun. And I gave that 4.5 stars, and I stand by it. I also listened to Moonflow by Bitter Gorilla, and I can see how this would totally be for someone, but it was just not for me. There was just... Okay, so we're following a trans woman who is going to collect these mushrooms to pay her bills, basically, and has this kind of bumbly tour guide. They stumble upon this cult in this forest where it's very easy to get turned around. There was LSD-laced breast milk, and it wasn't that there were orgies or even like the content of the orgies that I was just kind of over. It was just the sheer quantity. It was like pretty crude, and I can totally see how this would be for someone. It was just like not really for me. I did think that the audiobook narrator did an excellent job though. Like absolutely the perfect person for this book. So I enjoyed my audiobook experience. I enjoyed the book experience a little bit less. But there was a cat, and he did not die, which is always a slay. And then the last book that I read purely digitally was To Clutch a Razor by Veronica Roth, which is the next book in her Slavic folklore kind of novella series, and I liked it, but felt a little bit of a detachment from the story for some reason, and I felt that way about book 1 too, and maybe rereading them back to back would do a little bit better for me. I felt like I remembered enough from book 1, but I don't necessarily know that that was true. I do really like the writing in these books though. I like the Slavic folklore because like I am not as familiar with Slavic folklore as I am with like, you know, more of the folklores that you see in fantasy books. So I thought that part was interesting, and I am enjoying it as a novella series. I like a novella series. Some people claim that they're like cash grabs and stuff and aren't unnecessary, but I like them. And I gave this one still 4 stars, even though I felt some detachment from it. I don't think I gave it a fair shake by not rereading the first book, because it has been a while. Society of Unknowable Objects by Gareth Brown. This was kind of like if the British could get a hold of magical objects and put them in their museum. It was about a society who collected all of these magical objects so people could not use them and just held on to them, and about one woman who was starting to question this. And it got a lot darker than I thought it was going to. There was like a lot of murder, a lot of bad vibes, and I was thinking it was going to be more of like Midnight Library Hopecore, but it wasn't. So I definitely bumped up my rating of it. It felt like the stakes were higher. And I thought it was good. I would read from Gareth Brown again, but I'm not like itching to do so. And I gave that one 3.75 as well. Could you move? You're kind of right in the way. Soup. Can you come over here? Some books that I read as ARCs but are already out. The Possession of Alba Diaz. This was so good. This is my favorite Isabel Cañas so far. This is about a woman who gets possessed. And the love interest is trying to save her. And she's married to a man that she does not want to be married to. It's very the Isabel Cañas formula, but there's just something about each book that I adore and love, and it feels new. This is definitely the most horror forward Isabel Cañas that I've read so far. I've read all of her books. I don't know why I said so far. There's definitely still a very main romance plot, but the horror is way more the focus of the book in this one. And I loved it. I thought it was so good. I was super invested. It felt very tense. It was definitely the most emotionally invested I think I've been in an Isabel Cañas book so far. And I would totally reread this one. If you liked her other books, I do think you would still like this, but just be aware that there is a little more horror in this one. And I rated this 4.25 stars. The Guest Children by Patrick Tarr was a very, like, nothing special kind of horror book. It's about a man who goes to this hotel of sorts to find these children who have been missing for a while and get them back home. It's just a lot more about war than I wanted it to be. It's very like a boy horror book, not to assign gender to books, but I think you know what I mean when I say that. So it just kind of wasn't for me. This was like I put 3.25, but thinking back on it, it's like a 2.75. I did not like it that much. Like a creepy forest will usually get me, and I think that's where the most enjoyment I had of this book was, but I was just not super into it. And I probably wouldn't recommend it actually at all. So yeah, 2.75. And then we have Lucky Day by Chuck Tingle. I rated this a 4-star and I look back on it so fondly. I thought this was such a fun horror book. Horror is like a hard categorization for this book because it's not super scary or anything. The very beginning of this is just like a crazy, gory slasher fest, and then we get into this woman's grief. An event where a lot of people die, like in statistically improbable ways, and she is a data science person, a statistician, and is just trying to reconcile with this. Then one day, like an FBI agent comes and is like, hey, we need your help to figure this out. And it just gets crazier from there. It's very of like a buddy cop kind of situation, and also Final Destination. It was such an enjoyable time, and I understand that this book is not going to be for everyone, but I had such a fun time. It was absolutely absurd. If you like your horror books kind of goofy, this would really work well for you. And I just enjoyed it a lot. Like, it was just a good time. I would even reread this because I feel like I missed some things, you know? This is not necessarily my biggest disappointment of the month, but my biggest disparity in what my expectations of enjoyment were for it versus the reality of it. You Weren't Meant to Be Human by Andrew Joseph White. It's his adult debut, and it is a very tough read. Like, I think he definitely pushes his YA horror. He pushed this as well. I would categorize this personally as splatterpunk, especially for the ending of it. The ending is where I really struggled with it. I was fine with pretty much everything up until the last few pages, and then I just had this like full body reaction of disgust and being uncomfortable, and that's absolutely the point. Like, that's his intention. I just might not have read it if I would have known the ending. Obviously, that would spoil the book, and you should look up trigger warnings for books before you read them. But it was just like not my favorite. And we're following Crane, who is a part of this worm hive mind, just trying to survive. He is a trans masked person who is dating this really awful human being who also gets him pregnant, and then the hive mind forces him to keep it, so he goes through this forced pregnancy. And I'm a cis woman, but I'm also a person with a uterus, and going through a pregnancy against my will is like one of my greatest fears. So I thought that was really effective, and I was comfortably uncomfortable with that horror. But the ending, which I am not going to spoil because like it would spoil the whole thing, just made me so uncomfortable. And I get why it happened. I just don't like it. I did give this book 4 stars, so like it was really well written and I liked the messaging of it. It was just my personal experience with it. Okay, let's talk about the books I reread. They were both 5 stars on the initial read and 5 stars on the reread, which is great. The first book that I reread this month is The Eyes Are the Best Part by Monica Kim. I always talk about this book. It's one of my favorite weird girl books of all time. It's super gross, has you cheering for a very unlikable main character. You're on her side and you don't find yourself that way at the beginning, but then by the end you're like, hell yeah. And I think my book club felt that way for like the majority of the people there, which was fun. I hope they liked it. It was a lot of fun. Someone brought eyeballs, like little plush eyeballs, which was really just like a sweet gesture. And I love Ji-won. I think that she is such a complex character, and I love her. I cheer her on every time, and it was absolutely worth the reread. I'm glad I did it. And then my other reread was Julie Chan is Dead by Lian Chang. This is the book that I was on the Literally Dead book club live show for. It was so fun to discuss. There was a lot to discuss. There was a lot I didn't think about the first time. And I am finding myself so enjoying book club discussions because I think I'm a relatively critical reader, but I also usually miss a lot. And it was just so fun to discuss this one. People had insights and opinions that I didn't even think of, even on a reread. So it was just very enjoyable. And in this book, we're following Julie Chan, who is part of a twin set, and she kind of gets the short end of the stick lives with her biological aunt who is incredibly mean to her, but her sister Chloe gets adopted by this white family and she lives a very affluent, kind of whitewashed life. But then one day Chloe calls up Julie and is like, I made a mistake. So Julie goes and checks on her. Chloe's dead, and Julie, just by like, not intentionally, by sheer accident, takes over Chloe's life, and then things devolve from there. It's very culty. I think if you like Bunny but are also very chronically online and have opinions on influencers, you would really enjoy this book. I think it's so good. I can understand why people don't like it, but I also think they're wrong. So another 5-star for Madison. And then my only brand new 5-star of the month was Wild Reverence by Rebecca Ross. Rebecca Ross writes in a way that I think that she could do great things with poetry, but I'm so grateful that she chooses to do fantasy books with a romance in them instead. It is so gorgeously written, and I love this story. We're following Matilda, a god who is in love with a mortal lord, and she finds him because he dreams of her. It's so good. It's very celestial. I really enjoyed that she was not the most petite person in the room, not the most powerful person in the room, and more powerful than her love interest. It was all so good, and I thought that there was real consequences for the characters' choices in this book, which I enjoyed. Because sometimes there's like oh, those come back to life. Or there's this wild, wacky loophole, and that didn't necessarily happen in this book. I quite enjoyed it, and I definitely want to read everything Rebecca Ross has written because it is just so stunning. Those are the 13 books that I read in August. I'm hoping September is better both in quantity and quality. I will be rereading a couple more books that I think are going to be 5 stars on the reread, but I'm hoping to find some new ones too. Let me know what you read in August, maybe your best book, maybe your worst book if you want to complain about it, or if you've read any of these, let me know your opinion. And if you just want to leave me an emoji to say you're here and don't have anything else to say, give me an eyeball emoji for the eyes are the best part. And I will see you in the next one. It'll probably be my fall releases video, which I'm really excited about. There are so many, it's actually stressful. Okay, I'll see you in the next one. Bye!